offense and defense available for view on his, we'll give you the address later on.
Yeah.
Okay, if you know on the internet, Ted's a historian on the single wing and the different formations and stuff on that. And he's all over there. He's in Fiji right now and he's on his way to Vienna. So, Ted Seay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. It's a complete accident I could be here. I'm really grateful that Uncle Sam decided to send me in the right direction for once. I'm passing through LA on my way to Europe, and then I'll be heading back the other way around to Fiji after a couple of weeks. So this is just, you know, I'm very grateful to have the chance to be here and talk to you guys about this stuff. What I want to do today, given that we've got about 60 minutes to play with, is show you how, if you're already running single wing or another direct snap offense, you can quickly, and I think fairly easily, add a couple of completely different looks to what you're doing. And without asking new skills training of your kids, you can present completely different problems for defensive coordinators. And that's what we always try and do, is take what we already know, package it differently, and make whole new problems for the other guys. So what I'm going to propose to do is talk about the Steve Owen A formation that he ran with the New York Giants between 1938 and 1952, and the TCU Spread that Dutch Meyer created back in the 30s as well, and ran in the Southwest Conference for a number of years. He probably had his greatest success also in the early 1950s, by which time almost everyone had switched over to the T formation. And I think it was the fact that even as early as 52, 53, running a direct snap offense that looked anything other than like sort of plain vanilla single wing was presenting real problems to defensive coordinators, because by that time the T had been around for 8 or 9 years. It had been very widely adopted, and if you lined up in something like the A or the TCU Spread, you were doing something that very few people had dealt with, and you were causing them problems, getting ready for you know, focusing on this whole new learning curve for 1 week and preparing for that game. And to my mind, that's still one of the biggest advantages of doing things differently. You already know that as single wing coaches or Notre Dame box coaches or beast coaches, that if you do something that is significantly different from what most other people do, you gain a time advantage in that you have to force other people to take extra time to get ready to do what you do. Now, if you take that a step further, and what I'm going to talk about is adding 3 or 4 plays from a different look yet again, to give you a different weapon, you know, another arrow for the quiver, but it's based on the skills that you've already taught. So you're not asking anything outrageously new and different of your kids, but at the same time you're giving a whole new look to defenses. So we'll just quickly go through this. I've got playbooks out on both of these systems. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cross-load them from my drive onto Bruce's computer if I could, and they'll be available by email or whatever. I've got them both on my site, and I will do the address for you. I know most of you have been on the Delphi football forums before, and I've got all of my stuff on my own Wild Bunch forum. The address, just to get that out of the way, is http://forums.delphiforums, one word, .com, and then / my name with no space, Ted Seay. I tried to get the address of Wild Bunch, but that was a wife swapping site. That name was already in use, so people think it's some vanity thing. I say, no. I tried, believe me. Anyway, I'll go through quickly the PowerPoint here and show you the basics of what I have in mind for just adding sort of 3 or 4 series, a 3 or 4 play series from each of these formations. And I'm really into series football. I really think that if you can do the same thing as far as the defense is concerned, and yet attack 3 or 4 different points of attack, you've got a big advantage. If you can keep them guessing for that first crucial second and a half, more times than not you win. That's why I like the idea of doing something in a play series or a play cycle that hits all across the line and also throws the ball deep. I think that's an ideal way of organizing offenses, and that's what I'm going to talk about real quick. Then I've got some game footage to show you of TCU running the spread in the late 50s and of the Giants running the A formation against the Bears and the Packers back in the 40s. And I'll talk a little bit about both of those offenses. So let's go through the PowerPoint real quick. See how my tech skills are these days. So far, so good. Okay, as I was saying, not only are you focusing the defenses on something entirely new that they're not used to, but if you're already teaching a direct snap offense, there's very little new learning for your kids. If your center can already make the snap, you're not asking much of anything different of him. The line may be shifted around a little bit differently in terms of where they line up, but they're doing the same things. And that's an easy sell for your kids. You can just say, hey, we take our skills, we move them around a bit, and we give defenses huge problems, and it takes us about 5 minutes to learn something new. This is the basic TCU spread formation that Dutch Meyer came up with. He originally started off with 2 tight ends and a triple wing. So he'd have one wing one way and the 2 wing backs the other. And the ends, he just finally figured out if you move them out wide, suddenly you're creating a whole new problem for defenses because you've just added, 10, 15 yards to the defensive perimeter and you're spreading things wide out. His book, Spread Formation Football, which came out in '53, I think it was, is an interesting book. It's a good way to pick up some basic concepts about spreading with a few particular points of attack in mind. But the defenses that he shows are just crazy because people literally did not know what to do. They'd line up a 5 or a 6-man defensive line, but they'd spread it out all the way across the offensive front, and there's nothing behind it. So if you could get past that first level of defense, people were gone, and you'll see some of that in the film I'm going to show. I've drawn it up here against a 4-3, which is more or less adapted to this kind of look. Youth football, obviously, you'll see different defenses. You'll see a lot more 8-man fronts. And there's various ways of aligning against a formation like this. One of the things you have to be prepared for is that, as you already know, if you run, for example, unbalanced single wing, you can't really predict where people are going to line up on defense. They don't always know what they're doing, especially the first time they see your offense. You get that and more so with something like the TCU spread. Although, these days, with the spread shotgun being in such vogue, people are a little more used to seeing receivers spread all over the field. The original purpose that Dutch Meyer had for running the TCU spread was not to spread all over the field. It was to create blocking angles. His whole point was to spread out somewhat. He would, on the right side, have 4-yard splits only between those 3 receivers. I've spread it out so that it's more like 5 yards. And then, he would go 3 yards on the strong side in between those 3 guys, and then he'd go 4 yards on the weak side. I've made it 5 on the strong side, or 4 on the strong side and 5 on the weak side. So it is a somewhat spread formation, but again, the whole purpose is to be able to block down, pull a guard and kick out, pull another guard and lead on the defensive backfield, and be able to run off tackle, to be able to run the D gap or the E gap, if you will, with very little new learning involved. You tell someone to block the first color inside of him. You tell that to those 3 guys on the right. You pull both guards, kick out at the end, lead with the other guy, and your tailback takes the ball and runs to daylight. And there just isn't much simpler than that when it comes to sweeping the end or running off tackle. You can double team a linebacker who's giving you problems with those 2 slot receivers and still pull the guards and make good yards that way too. So it's pretty basic in terms of the concepts involved. But again, you're presenting a completely different look to the defense. One of my favorite plays in all of football, in whatever form, whether you're running direct snap or whether you've got a quarterback under center, is the optional running pass. And it is a great play from the TCU spread. I didn't even draw a pattern for the backside end. You could do anything you want to with him. Depending on how much defensive overreaction you get to the trip side and the tailback taking off that way, you can hitch him, you can run him straight down the field, post, corner, it doesn't really matter. Sooner or later he's going to be wide open because people are frantic to get over and try and slow the play down on the strong side. I've diagrammed a simple flood formation, which you send the end deep, just tell him run. Just tell him to take the top off the coverage. A short corner or smash route underneath that, and then a guy going out into the flat. And since it takes a little bit longer to develop this than it does most of the plays where you send someone to the flat, you run him a little bit deeper so that he's there when the tailback needs him. And since I believe in never bypassing an open receiver, that's a gimme 9 times out of 10, hitting that guy in the flat if you just want a ball control play. If somehow or another the defense manages to get everyone covered up, your tailback's out there with, you know, with all the room in the world in front of him, he tucks the ball and he runs. So there really is no wrong way, as long as you can get around the corner. And with people spread out like this, that really isn't as difficult as it might seem, especially since they're pass conscious. Now, I'm going to show 2 different series for 2 different games of TCU running the spread. The first series, they mix up the run and the pass really well. They mix up the formations. There's a variation of this formation I'll show you that Coach Meyer called normal, where he brings the fullback in from the inside slot and puts him behind the strong guard. And they run full spin from that. They run all kinds of interesting stuff. And this first series, they really mix it up well, formations, running, passing. The second series, they line up in this formation and they do nothing but throw the ball. And that's a threat. That's something that defenses have to be prepared for, is that you're just going to line up like this and you're going to throw the football. And they have to be ready to do something about that. And almost automatically, you'll find that what they do to prepare for that is spread the defense out and start moving people out of the box. Okay, gee, what do we do now? Well, you know, you've got the middle, you've got your blockers, you've got some great shovel passes out of this formation. The shovel pass was basically invented for something like this. Okay, so there's ways of attacking the whole defensive front very quickly and easily, and I'm going to show you a couple of them. Shovel pass, there's different ways of doing this. This is exactly the way that Coach Meyer diagrammed it in 1953 against an even front. Now, depending on who's uncovered, the center or the strong side guard, somebody's going to pull, or the weak side guard for that matter, somebody's going to pull and take out that end man on the line of scrimmage who's taking a hard outside move as soon as he sees the tailback coming his way, because he's thinking optional running pass. So the complement to that is to kick him out, shovel the ball back inside to that slot back, and run off tackle. And it's a great play. And it is not really dependent on what kind of defense you're seeing. Because again, once you get them reacting or overreacting to the optional running pass, to that first outside move where you're threatening the flank, and you can get people taking that kind of dramatic outside charge, you get people sliding inside, stunning outside, one way or another you're going to get a hole there in the off tackle gap, and this is a great way of exploiting it. And it's an easy way to do it too. And this is the only other play I'm diagramming right now out of the TCU spread, just to show you that we're talking about as a sort of a surprise addition to your core single wing. You can just install these 2 or 3 plays that are going to take advantage of what the defense is doing. Now what happens if they don't spread out? What happens if they insist on staying in the box and they don't basically cover down on all 5 of those immediate receivers? You go to the bubble. This just becomes almost an automatic. You've got a blocking angle, you've got a quick throw, and you're going to make yards. Maybe you only average 6 or 7 yards per bubble pass. I can live with that. I can make a living off of 6 or 7 yards every time you want to throw that, until you force them to cover down. And one way or another, you're going to be able to take advantage of that too, probably with your deeper passing game.
You said your splits on the wide receivers were 4 or 5 yards?
4, 4, 4 on that side, and then 5 and 5 on the back side. Okay. That's the way I do it. When Meyer came out with it originally, it was 3 yards in between the 3-man side and 4 yards on the other side. It depends, obviously it's age group dependent too, on what you're comfortable doing, what kind of throws your quarterback can make, tailback, I'm sorry. So whatever you're comfortable doing. It doesn't have to be spread all over the field. In fact, if you have younger kids and you think that 3 yards is too much to ask of them to make a down block, you can cut it down to 2. It really is whatever suits your needs at your age level. But you want those 5 receivers staring the defense in the face. You want them to be conscious of that immediate threat of throwing the ball deep on them. And at this point, again, I've got a TCU playbook available. Richard's got a copy, and I can leave a copy with Bruce here as well. And it's just a Word document. It's not a very big file. We can get that around. I'm pretty sure I still have it on my Wild Bunch site. So go in there and have a look. If it's not there, it's on the Single Wing Delphi Forum. And just do a search for TCU Spread. And that has a lot more with a different formation than I'm about to show you, the normal formation. I use, well, I'll show you. This is the normal formation. Again, now we're balanced up in the ends and slots have identical splits. Again, in this case, I go 5 yards. Coach Meyer went 4 yards in between each of them. Fullback comes in behind the strong guard, and now you can do a few different things in the way of misdirection. And you'll see a bit of normal formation in the game film that I'm going to show from TCU as well. What I do with this, and I don't think I've diagrammed this here. That's just a lowdown of who's where. Okay, yeah, good. This in the one slide basically shows the different threats. Full spin to the fullback. Center can snap him the ball. He can hand off on what's essentially a fly sweep. You know, the ball will be snapped when the motion man is just about where the backside guard is. He bellies back. You have a mesh between the spinning fullback and the guy who's been in motion. You can have the handoff on the sweep. You can have a fake and a dive into the line with whatever kind of blocking scheme you're happy with. You can do inside zone. You can man up. You can do trap blocking. And then the third possibility is the one that's actually diagrammed here, which is the tailback fakes getting the ball and fading back to pass. That may not seem like much of a fake, but when everyone is focused on the spinning of the fullback and the meshing with the guy in motion, you'll be surprised how many people you can fool one way or the other. That you can pass when they think you're running and you can run when they think you're passing. It really does keep defenses off balance because suddenly they've got to look at something they're not used to focusing on, which is this one kid spinning, the other kid coming in motion. And it's like three-card Monte. They can't keep their eyes on everything at the same time. And you'll find often you'll break people clean downfield without anyone realizing that it's a passing play. And the thing is, what starts off looking like a block for the fly sweep is suddenly a slant or it's a skinny post or it's a wheel pattern. So this series is an extremely efficient way to hit a bunch of different points of attack. I don't necessarily advocate teaching this if you're just going to use the TCU spread for a changeup. I would be more than happy to just put in the running pass, one variation or another of a shovel play, and then the bubble screen if they don't man up on your receivers, just as a way of exploiting defensive weakness and taking advantage of someone who's not prepared for that look if they think that all you run is single wing. This is a different level. This is taking the teaching to a higher degree where you're obviously going to take more time to get the timing down for the full spin. If you already run a fullback full spin, it's something you can think about putting in from a different formation. It's a great way to run fly sweeps from a direct snap formation because the motion is identical to the motion that I show in the TCU playbook that I've done of unbalancing and running trips and basically just doing run and shoot from the TCU normal formation. Because you got the fullback there to block at the edge, you can slide block with your line. Your tailback's back there and he's got the ball, and now all of a sudden it looks like what Hawaii's doing, you know? So that's why I like the fly sweep so much, because that motion when it starts off, they don't know, you know, is this a run and shoot pass coming or is it the fly sweep? And they have to be prepared for both for those first few seconds. The longer you can keep the defense in two minds, the greater your advantage. And then on top of that, if you snap the ball to the fullback, you know, the fun is on. They still don't know where the ball's going. So it's a nice little series if you're planning on running more of this offense and throwing some of these run and shoot passes and having your best receiver there isolated on the backside and using the unbalanced principle of a 3-and-1 formation where if they overcommit to trips, you know, you've got all the field in the world to throw your best receiver on the backside. So that's a nice little offense again, but I'm not necessarily suggesting that for someone who just is looking for a changeup. So that is very quickly a way of putting some TCU spread into your direct snap offense without adding too much to what you're already doing in the way of skills and teaching. And this is, and that's a split end over there on the right side, the A formation that Coach Owen, fascinating guy by the way. He was raised in Oklahoma when it's still the Indian Territory, and he grew up in cowboy country. He was a wildcatter in the oil fields. I mean, he really had a colorful life. And he joined the NFL when it was basically still in its barnstorming stage. And when he switched from the Kansas City Stars around with in 36, 37, flexing offensive line splits out in a way that people had not seen before. Unbalancing the formation in one direction with a line and in the other direction with a backfield just to mess with defenses. Trying to gain angle blocking advantages by flexing out these linemen. Where you see splits, that's almost exactly a yard or the body width of an offensive lineman, so you just sort of mentally fill in where 3 extra linemen would be. He was asking defenses to spread out a lot wider than they were used to back then, and he was taking advantages of the holes that resulted. Now this in and of itself is kind of a little interesting variation on the single wing, because again, you've got the backfield strong one way, and you can see the potential for running with power and pulling people and leading. And yet at the same time, he came up with a half-spin series that to my mind is one of the best football series I've ever seen. I'll show you a little bit of that as well from game footage from the Giants against the Bears and the Packers back in the 40s. He turned a fairly average running back into someone who was either leading the NFL in rushing or threatening for the lead for 3 or 4 years in a row. And he did it just through the use of the same motion on every play, threatening a sweep one way, a fullback play of some sort up the middle, and then a quarterback pass or bootleg in the other direction. And that's when I wrote up the playbook. It's basically focused on this half-spin series. And I'm going to suggest 4 plays from the A formation, again, as a change-up to what you're already doing, to give a different look to defenses. It's a more subtle change in this case, and that there would be some people that don't even know that you're doing something different. I mean, frankly, we're not talking about Einsteins out there.
What's the coach's name again?
Steve Owen, O-W-E-N. They may not even figure out that you've unbalanced the line one way and the backfield the other way. When Coach Owen invented this offense, he had that end right in there, just a yard outside the outside tackle there. And you can run it that way, for sure. And in short yardage goal line situations, you might want to bring a second tight end there. I like the semi-open formations. I like to have at least one end split out because I want to put the defense in a couple of kinds of conflict. And with your best receiver there, you're going to make them use at least 1.5, preferably 2 men to cover him. And then the numbers game for everything else that you're doing improves dramatically. So let's go through very quickly the plays that I'm talking about adding. The first thing they have to take care of is the ability of the center to snap to that blocking back. Now just quickly in terms of personnel, you got a tight end who should be a classic tight end there on the left. The wing back should be the fastest guy on your team that can catch a football. And he's going to be the one who's going in motion and running the sweeps from the half-spin series. So you want some serious speed there. The split end should be your best receiver, maybe a little bit of height on him if you can. He's going to be asked to crack block on people, and you don't want a little tiny guy there, ideally. So if he's got a bit of size and hands, that's perfect. The blocking back, in a perfect world, I'd like someone that Joe Gibbs would want to have used as an H-back, in that he'd have size, be able to move his feet a bit, and could hit people. If you don't have that, and most of us don't, then I put a third guard there. I just put another body that can move and can block and trap people and just sort of physically abuse other human beings. Fullback is 4.5 yards directly behind the center. Should be a classic fullback who can run right up the middle with authority. The quarterback, who's 4 yards and he's in between those two, the middle guard and the inside tackle, should be almost a classic T-formation quarterback in that he's being asked to pivot, spin, handoff, fake, and throw the football. Very little running being asked of him. He's the guy who's dealing the cards more than anything else. So you're requiring the defense to cover that first gap there by the threat of having the blocking back there and your ability to quick snap it to him. If you find that there's any kind of bubble there and you only need short yards, that's an automatic. That's an absolute gimme in the play. There's different ways you can block that gap, but as long as you've got at least one helmet for every helmet they've got, you're going to make yards with that play. Even though most of what I'm suggesting falls within the half-spin series, you can run this with a half-spin motion too. I suggest including this play just to be able to do this to defenses, to keep them honest. Okay, everything else, we've got motion that goes to just behind where the blocking back is. The ball is snapped to the quarterback. He pivots. I want him reaching forward for the ball as he's half turning. His back is to the defense. The wingback comes through first. The fullback takes a lateral step, just as a timing maneuver, and then charges straight ahead, threatening up the middle. The quarterback, again, either drops to pass or preferably, in my mind, bootlegs away from where the sweep's going. This is the sweep. This is one way to block it. Again, it's going to depend a lot on where defenses are lining up. If the guy at the end is wider, you may want to crack the end on him and send the guard out for the cornerback. But you want your fast kid there. You want him getting the ball quickly, and it's something approaching full speed. This is a great play just to run as a speed-type sweep. It's not as fast as the jet, but it's close, and it's got a lot of misdirection involved. The threat of the fullback becomes increasingly large the more the defenses start flowing to try and shut down the sweep. The more they vacate the middle, as soon as they see that motion, people start edging over to the outside to get in position to shut down the sweep, the more the fullback play becomes a real threat. And again, every single time you want good fakes from all of your backs. You want them to follow the Mark Speckman philosophy from Willamette College. Anyone can be an All-American faker. Even dead guys can fake. That's just effort, that's want to, and that's willingness to do what it takes to benefit the team. If you're willing to fake every single time and you can take one guy out of the play by making him stop and think for a second, then you can be the person who's responsible for a touchdown. And you can go and you can prove that to him on game film. Now here's a fullback trap out of that same action. This is one way to run up the middle. You've got that sort of three-man troika of the center, the middle guard, and the inside tackle there. They can wedge, they can trap block. There's a few things they can do on the inside plays. Basically, you can run the fullback right straight up the middle or to either side of that group of linemen with authority off of this backfield action. Because again, once you have success running the sweep, you're going to see defenses get outside conscious real quick. And anything that they do to weaken the box to reinforce that edge helps you to run the inside stuff. Now again, down block, trap, there's different ways of doing this, but this is a great way. At a younger level, just wedge it. Just run the fullback in there behind a wedge. And the third play, as I advocated, is the quarterback boot, or actually I guess you could call it a waggle because you've got the guard out there in front of him. The fullback ends up filling up the middle, blocking any leakage. Your so-called blocking pattern by the split end is now a crossing route. You can get the guy outside with a blocker and three receivers coming his way. You've got the wheel pattern up the other way with your fastest back. And if they leave him alone, that's a sure touchdown if you can stop and throw back across the field. So there's different things that you can do off this action, but basically outside, middle, and other side is a constant threat. And they have to, as long as your guys are selling their fakes, as long as they're doing everything they can to convince the defense that they've got the football as long as they can, then you're going to find that this is an extremely effective series. And this is one pass play that I would advocate looking at. This is Y stick, or what Coverdale and Robinson call the turn route, which is just a quick stick or turn route by that tight end out into the flat quickly by the blocking back. And you'll notice he's pretty well hidden from the defense until the last second when he breaks out there. And then to get a stretch on the secondary, you send the wing back on what I call a hard fade, and that they're running a 45-degree out, which is something that defenses are not used to seeing, and people on the edge are not very comfortable about dropping out and back at that angle most times. They're used to seeing people slant in, but it's a rare defensive back at most levels below college that's used to covering someone quickly running diagonally outwards. And it tends to make them really get on their horse and ride, and that tends to open up a lot of space underneath. The whole idea is that you're going to over-under someone out there in the flat and make them wrong no matter what they do. Basically, your quarterback is going to take the ball, drop back a step or two, look for the turn route. If there's anyone there stopping it, then the flat's going to be wide open, and vice versa. But have them look for the tight end first and then come down quickly to the blocking back. And it's more of a ball control route than anything, except if someone stumbles and your wingback's out there all by himself, and then you've got 6 points. And that's what I like about it. It's ball control passing, but it's got a couple of deep shots built into it, and you'd be surprised how often you're able to exploit those deep shots on a regular basis. And that's it in terms of the PowerPoint. Now I'd like to set up the DVD and show you guys some video of these offenses in action. Okay. You can see that, well, you can almost see because the ends are out of the picture on both sides. This is the spread formation. The center's got his head down, and he's got a nose man over him. And if we've got slow motion here, I might see about, yeah, here we go. I'm going to see if we can sort of walk through this play. This is not the best quality video. The next one's much better. But this, again, is the only real good footage I've got of one game, and then there's much better footage coming up. But this is basically the only chance you'll see that I know of to get the TCU spread in action running the ball. No, it's not working. Hell with it. Okay, motion, full spin, trap up the middle. And that was the outside slot, who's one of the halfbacks.
Can you run it back?
Sure, that we can do. Okay, so the outside slot's going to go in motion. Snap, full spin, trap. And they get some pretty good yardage out of it, except too many guys in motion, so. Okay. Now that was a handoff. The tailback came forward and handed off to the inside slot on the left, and he's about to take off tackle. And again, you can see them taking advantage of spreading out the defense in a way that people were just not used to dealing with back there in the 50s. You know, you've got your inside three and a 5-3 defense, so that's fine. But that nose guard doesn't have a middle linebacker behind him, which he's used to having. So like the safety blanket is removed from these guys. You've got the defensive ends spread out on the slots where they're not used to playing. So even back then, he was able to create mismatches in situations that people weren't used to dealing with, which is one of the big advantages to this offense. Now this is the normal formation. See the fullback is there behind the strong side guard. So this is giving him a slightly different look. This is really bad videotape. But this is just a power run to the strong side. Again, we're back to the spread, full spin, handoff. Not a whole lot there, but you can see the possibilities. And that's just a straight run up the middle out of the spread formation for a first down. Now that was a handoff to the fullback who was coming from the inside slot. Normal formation again. Snap to the fullback, run a little trap play for a couple of yards. Now a reverse. Yeah, sure, that one we're going to show again. That starts off like we played before, by snapping to the fullback, heading in one direction, but this time he's going to hand off. That's the fullback trap. Now this next play starts the same way, hands off, guard leading, nice inside reverse. Yeah, I wish this was better. And that's just a straight snap to the fullback out of the normal formation set to the left. That's first and goal on the 8. Same play to the fullback, 2 yards. Normal formation again. He likes us down near the goal line. Power run to the tailback, not a whole lot in it. And the fullback drops the ball. And now they try a jump pass, ball's knocked down, then they lose the ball on downs. Now here's the second series. This is against Texas. Now all they're going to do this series is throw the ball. And it's already in slow motion. Ball's tipped, so the little quick pass gets broken up. Little crossing patterns, nothing very difficult. Nice catch there. Do you get the impression Texas doesn't really know who to cover the whole time?
picks when you have superior athletes?
Oh, you bet, you
So they had
bet.
to scheme them up.
Absolutely. TCU had maybe sort of 4th or 5th best athletes in the state. And back then, Texas had the pick of everyone. DX Bible was still the head coach there. And he throws back very nicely here on the run. Spots someone open. Throws the ball, gets it tipped back to him by the defender. Still has it.
Fran Tarkman, actually.
Wow. And finds an open man.
Which quarterback is this they had?
This is after the Sammy Baugh, Davey O'Brien era, so I'm not sure who this is, but they were national champions either this year or the year before. Now that fails, but they see something they like there on that corner route, because they're going to come right back to it. And every single play in the series has been a pass. And now they come back to the corner. Well, next play. Eventually they come back to the corner. Nice clothesline. That was pretty.
And so face mask, if I didn't have face mask.
That's right. Okay, there we go. But they still like something.
Keep it on the short.
There we go. So that's the TCU spread. And again, I'm sorry about the quality of that first series of plays, but it was a nice demonstration of them lining up in different variations of the formation, doing different things, mixing up the run and the pass. The play action possibilities are really good. And again, the running pass, to my mind, is, if not the best play in football, it's one of the very few best. Now this is going to be a little sensitive in terms of where we are on the counter, which I'm hoping I can read here, because otherwise I'm going to have to feel my way through. This first game is the Bears and the Giants in 1941. Is there a counter anywhere?
No, there isn't.
Oh well, we'll find it. Okay, I'm sorry you guys who are fans of the Clark Shaughnessy 2 formation, but I haven't got any time for this stuff. Yeah, man in motion. So what? Okay. No. Come on, guys.
I have to stand in front of it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Okay, so the Bears scored first. Okay. One thing you'll notice is that the Giants don't always line up in the A formation in this game. They do a lot of what they call their B formation, which is basically just unbalanced single wing. And they run half spin with a wing back in motion. They don't have great success with it, but that's most of what they do when they're not running the A. Not a whole lot of luck passing against the monsters in the midway here. And they send a guy in motion, the fullback towards the sideline, then run the tail back up the middle.
Is that the way the full second back did?
It doesn't look like it sometimes. It doesn't look like it. Maybe in theory.
No, I just had it set and take it
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
One good set.
yeah, right there on the goal line where you can run into them.
And I'm adding on either. Didn't realize.
No,
Yeah.
real men. Okay, yeah, T formation. Okay. And that was it for the first quarter. I'm not kidding. Okay, again, single wing, send the fullback in motion, run the tailback. Not a whole lot going on there. Okay, single wing again, wing back in motion, half spin, and a counter inside of the wing back. Okay, now, they've come from a pre-shift into the A formation. You see, here's those three linemen, the troika there. There's a split, there's the outside tackle, there's another split, that's an end. Again, I have him out here, the way I run it. There's the center, there's a man gap, there's the other guard, man gap, tight end, wing back, blocking back, quarterback, and the fullback's just here out of the picture. Now you can see this presenting a different look to the Bears. It's forcing their front to spread more than they're used to. And this is just a quick kick. They line up in the A formation the first time and they quick kick the ball.
You see what they're doing.
And they almost succeeded in pinning the Bears down there. Call time on me, Bruce, when I run out.
No, you got plenty.
Okay, come on. Okay. Do you guys see over here? Okay, here we go. They're lining up in the A again. This time they're starting the series in the A formation. And if you look here, you know, I'm not entirely convinced that they're taking advantage of what the Bears are doing. They haven't really thought out. I mean, I would be pulling the whole student body right through that space right there, you know, if it were me.
Go right at that back. Slam these down.
Okay, here's the half spin. Bam, nothing. Not pretty. They did everything but block on that play. But you saw the whole idea was to send the wing back in that quick motion. Wait till he gets very close and then snap the ball. Goes to the quarterback, half spin. The timing's not particularly good, and then again, no one blocks that backside guy. But that's the basic look at the half spin series. Okay, direct snap. Not much there for the fullback, but power running to the short side of the formation is easy to do. Now pass, gets killed. I have to tell you, the Giants were known more for defense back then. Now they're funny. And they spent a lot more time working on it than they did on offense. And yet the A formation still kept them competitive because what they were doing was just so fundamentally different to what everyone else was up to. Halftime. Okay. Single wing again. Half spin series.
Good play.
Yeah. They had more success out of that for most of the game than they did from the A formation. But you got the sense that the Bears were more comfortable defending the single wing because they were seeing a lot more of it. And the Giants were the only team that was running this screwy A formation. I mean, they were considered odd even back then.
That's a good play.
Yeah.
It's the same one.
Yeah. having a lot of success.
Over and over.
Now that's a wide end. Don't try this at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bears try.
Surprised one drop kick on that thing.
Yeah, well, I think there is one drop kick in here, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now here's the A formation, there's the half spin, and again, there's not a whole lot of blocking on the strong side there. Still made some yards, but you get an idea of what the timing of the series looks like. They send a little quick motion, snap, and the quarterback just takes that one and runs up the middle because he saw something he liked. There's a real bubble there. And they pre-shift and they can go either to the single wing or the A formation. Half spin, and he takes it the full way around and spins up the middle. Nice interception. They have the fullback passing a fair amount in this game. Again, I recommend if you're going to try this, you have your passing back at the quarterback position. I'm going to go ahead to the next game because there's a couple of series I want to show you in Green Bay, including Green Bay running the Notre Dame box. The first series, you're going to see Curly Lambeau's Green Bay Packers running Notre Dame box with a shift, just the same way Rocky taught it. And it looks like showgirls hopping around, just like that movie with Pat O'Brien. It's pretty funny. And you can also tell that this particular season, this is wartime, when a lot of people were in uniform. The pack is not very good. They don't have a whole lot of talent. Now here we're playing the Polo Grounds in New York, and you can see where the baseball giants are still playing because the infield looks like a moonscape. This is A formation, direct snap, and a pass by the fullback. And that's half spin from the single wing. Why these people don't get called for offside, I have no idea. But it's a nice interception there by Green Bay. And of course, back then you weren't down unless you had a stake through your heart. So people getting up and crawling and people were spearing them. Okay, here comes the hopping, shifting thing again. Now, they weren't too concerned about setting for a full second, which was one of the great advantages of the shift in the Notre Dame box, because you force the defense to go one way or the other very quickly.
Big
Yeah.
back, defensive
Yeah.
back or linebacker, where
They had their all-pro center Mel Hine playing linebacker in their defense. It's him, number 7 there. Interesting punt formation. Okay, now this next series by the Giants will be the last one I show, and it concludes with something that, again, I don't recommend you try at home. But it's where the timing goes wrong on an A formation half spin play, and the quarterback tries to compensate for it. Nice little counter play up the middle and some very bad tackling. They're liking just running up the middle with power here, so they keep doing it. You know, if you're succeeding just lining up in the single wing and running inside of tackles, why argue? Little half spin inside counter to the wing back. Now here, we missed the handoff. No, there we go. To the fullback, he doesn't make a whole lot. This is the handoff. What does he do? He throws the ball over the guy's head. It's on the ground. Oh man, almost that skillful. The only thing that saved him is that the Green Bay guy kicked the ball, and they called him for that. But anyway, so much for classic football. Now, that wasn't the best exhibit I've ever seen of skillful offensive football by the Giants, but it was enough to give you a sense of what the half-spin series looks like. There's a couple plays I didn't get to where they break some nice long runs off the sweep, off various counters. You can hit off tackle to the wingback by running it inside, and a long trap play and kicking out the end man on the line of scrimmage. There's various things that you can do, and it's a fairly simple series to teach. And again, it gives you something completely different to show to the defense. So again, Bruce is going to have a copy of this presentation and of the playbooks that I've got on the A formation and on the TCU spread. And if anyone wants to get in touch with me, I'm real easy to locate. I've got my own forum on Delphi, and you can contact me through that if nothing else. Thanks a lot.